Hi, Lexi. I wanted to leave you some feedback on your rough draft. As a whole, I think that this is working quite well. You have you have a good sketch for a story here. I think it's an interesting story on its own. But I also think that it fits with the theme quite well. Um, and so what I want to do is give you a little bit of feedback in terms of it's towards some I can't, sorry, in terms of the areas where I think that you can expand and revise. And so yeah, the way that you open it up, you're right. It is a little bit cliche, and so and the details that you bring in here, though you say that you remember them vividly, the way that the writing is working right here, I would argue is the opposite, right? It's a little vague as opposed to vivid. Now, this whole area in here is very, very, very strong, right? Everything beyond here works so well. So I think if you can think about the good stuff that you're doing in here, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, and how you can use, the strategies that you're using here to re-see, to revise this opening paragraph, I think that you could have a stronger hook that's not a cliche right from the beginning. And so one of the things that, we talked about in class was in medias res, right? Starting in the middle of things. And we also talked about there's more than one way to organize a narrative. I wonder if some of the information from the final paragraph could actually become the first paragraph, particularly the idea that, maybe it's the idea that it's the first time that you've seen a friend after a traumatic experience and it was awkward, and really kind of painting the picture of why it was awkward, right? You mentioned that we didn't know how. So if you could show that through action, I think that would be a really strong way to start it out, and then you could connect that to this biblical quote that you've included, right? That really helps you. It really helps provide a guide for you personally and how you interact with other people in the world, and then that could help us pivot into going back in time and then telling the story. You don't have to do that, right? You could keep it in the organization that it is. It's just a thought that I had in terms of, you're admitting it's cliche. And one of the things that we do in professional writing is do our best to avoid those cliches. And that's one of the ways that you can do it. I One thing I like this whole section in here. I think that you've got some really strong organization, really clear sentence structure. The one thing that I kind of wanted from you is a clear sense of setting, right? We know that you're at your family's home, and we know that it's Thanksgiving, but maybe a clearer sense of where we are geographically, right? Did this take place in Joplin? If so, what is Joplin like? What is your family house like? Just some of those details that could not only establish setting but also give us insight into who you are. um Here's something that I wanted to point out. You've got a point of view shift here. So you're staying in present tense the whole time, but here you slip over into second, and you want to do your best to avoid second person perspective. So revise this to be, we hung up because I had gotten a message from a guy I liked at the time, and the app wouldn't let me send a message right? Does that make sense? So I know what you're doing here. You're trying to create this closeness with the reader. But the way that works in speech doesn't necessarily translate on the page. And the way that it translates on the page, it sounds like a grammatical error. So just address that. Um, I think I like your dialogue here. I think separating your dialogue from the text, like treating it like it's its own paragraph, is going to make how powerful these short, choppy sentences are. It'll help the reader hear the way that they probably sounded. In addition, it's also going to help build tension. So I love the fact that you pull back from the narrative here and give us a little bit of background information about your relationship with Chloe, so we understand, right? Like, why this is such a terrifying moment for you. Um, Paint a clearer picture of this. So bring more concrete details in, so we can really see Chloe and see you and see your relationship, right? So you said the majority of our childhood memories have each other in them. So more clearly paint some of those. I think these details right here come at the wrong spot. It's amazing how quickly your life can change from a clear phone call. I think that if you paint those pictures of Chloe and then yank this out and hold on to it, and then come back to the present tense here a couple minutes later, I think it's going to be stronger. This is really good. All of these details in here are really good. And then here we talked about possibly moving this to the beginning. You don't necessarily have to do that. Whatever you do, I think that this is the place to expand with dialogue and action, particularly in your final line. So what specifically did you do to empathize with her, right? What did you use? Eye contact? Did you listen to everything that she said? Did you really sit with everything that she said internally? And then the reader's going to want to know, well, what happened next? What happened to Chloe? And probably what's most important, because this is what seems to be the theme of the narrative, what happened to your relationship? So even though things got awkward, through, your moment of empathy, were you able to work through that for her sake? So in other words, we need some resolution here. So those are the areas that I would focus on for revision. I think that if you do that, this is going to be a pretty solid draft. So I look forward to seeing where you take this, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.